Welcome.
Hello and welcome to OzLoL Podcast, episode 70. My name is Colossus. I am host of the show, and we're going to be talking this week about Oceanic Scene. The professional side of things is finally starting to happen for 2015, and we've got a bit to talk about the Challenger Series which happened on the weekend. We'll also be talking about things on the PBE, and also just the general state of the meta going into Season 5, as that is nearly upon us. And to joining me this week, as always, is my trusty comrade, Stephen Garstone.
Pleasure to be here.
Comrade not in the communist sense, in the friend sense, because we don't like them communists. And joining us this week also is a face you'd remember, maybe not so much a voice you remember. Joining us this week is Jack, the voice of Victor Bradley.
Hello. What happened? It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Guys, help! I'm scared.
I imagine that we'll be seeing Victor Bradley sometime before the end of the show, because as we had you casting the battle arena on Thursday, and you just couldn't help but slide into that Russian accent. So
Every now and then it happens.
yeah,
It's like an uncontrollable quack. It just goes. You know?
All right. Well, you can check out our website is OzLoL.trinityforcepodcast.com. If you go there, you'll find all our previous episode, including last week's not last week's, but the week before, the New Year's Eve episode, which I thought I'd uploaded, but I hadn't. So that's actually now available on iTunes. Somehow I uploaded the audio, and then it just didn't. And I thought I did a post, but no. Anyway, you can go and find our show there.
I just want to interject at this point.
Yeah.
This week I was going to come out and apologize to everyone that we didn't release a show last week because I had a really bad cold, and you can probably still tell my voice still isn't 100%. But since Carrot forgot to release before the week beforehand, it doesn't look like the schedule's been mapped up at all. So this is all on him.
We were just incompetent. We were incompetent 2 weeks ago rather than last week. So. Yes, you can also find all our social media details there. And if you actually want to email us, I forgot that we don't actually have our email address up there. It's OzLoLpodcast@gmail.com. So if you want to send us an email, you can do it that way. And Battle Arena should be this Thursday from 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. It is for bronze to gold. If you want to learn how to get better at the game, you can play some games and have us shoutcast. It's myself and Steve and sometimes Jack. Was last Thursday. And also some other guys.
I did one. Victor did one.
Oh, that's right. Victor did one.
They were
that's
both
right,
pretty terrible.
Yeah.
I don't recommend those episodes to anybody.
We should also make mention that you actually have a podcast of your own. And also, don't forget our sister shows, the Trinity Force Podcast and the T-Force LCS Rundown. So, yeah. All right, well, let's get into the scene news. Actually, before we do that, because we had Victor on for New Year's Eve, but we didn't actually have Jack. So since you're technically sort of a different person, how about we say, since you're new to the show, what is your favorite lane and your favorite champion?
You put me on the spot here, Carrot. I'm not really one to play a single champion exclusively. Not a fan of Taric. Don't like him at all. Never liked that champion. He's probably below Urgot in terms of how much I like that champion. So I think, honestly, if I was to give a definitive answer, I'd say I'm a top laner. I like playing top lane. I play a lot of top lane. My favorite champion, it's got to be Gangplank. I'm going to give it to the player. So just like Venus.
There was a phase where you would play only Draven, regardless of where you were for a while.
Yes. You know, like, it's hard for me to say who's my favorite. Like, Gangplank was the first champion I played. Garen was the first one I learned until I had enough to buy Gangplank. And then I played heaps of Cho'Gath because I liked eating things. And then I played 30 days straight of Draven, and that was really stressful and painful. And as much as I love Draven, he's incredibly difficult to learn, and I don't want to play Draven. And then Kalista came out, and I was like, I learned Draven. I don't know if I want to learn her now. It's too much work. I'm just going to give up. And I have a very big soft spot for Taric.
Yes.
He's also currently the only champion I can play on this awful laptop that gives me a Like I like
There's
playing
that pointy
Talon a
click
lot as well.
stun. It makes it easy. You don't have to worry about skill
it makes
shots.
it so much easier.
Yeah.
I've been into Talon a lot recently. I out of the jungle, weirdly enough, and I cannot play that champion because graphically he's just got too much going on. I average 6 FPS in a team fight. It's just so tragic.
That is pretty problematic.
Please, everyone, give me all of your money so I can buy a new computer.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's talk about some Oceanic news. So on the weekend we had the Challenger Series. Now, if you're not familiar with the way they've organised the 2015 pro scene for Oceania, essentially they had an open ladder for about 6 weeks, I think it was, which was basically a number of weekly tournaments and some occasional tournaments that anybody could participate. And essentially people got circuit points. The top 6 teams, played against joined Immunity and Climax Crew for a playoffs. And the 4 winners, is it 4 winners? No, it's 4 winners, I think, go on to join Chiefs, Direwolves, Legacy, and Avant as part of the professional, the actual top tier of pro play this season. So the games we saw on the weekend, which I think it's a double elimination tournament, so will actually be some games this weekend as well. We had Immunity versus Villains, Fortnite versus Endzone, Sudden Fear versus Climax Crew, and Rich Gang versus Symphony. Now, of course, spoilers if you haven't watched it. Immunity beat Villains 2-0. Yay for Steve. If you're not aware, Steve is the manager of Team Immunity.
And if you're also not aware, I'm the #1 advisor to Steve.
Are you his major domo?
Oh yeah, Steve comes to me all the time and he says, I wanted to run this strategy with my team, and I say, Steve, no, you're not doing that. You're going to run Janna, Pantheon, Fizz, Sivir, and Gnar, and that is exactly the first comp they ran in the first game.
Yeah. All you, buddy.
That's it. His vizier. You are his Jafar to his whatever the king guy in Aladdin is.
He's the Sultan.
Yeah, the Sultan. That's it, the Sultan. I don't know about this Disney crap. Anyway, don't let my wife hear me say that. So Sudden Fear beat, Fortnite beat Endzone 2-1. Sudden Fear beat Climax Crew 2-1. And Rich Gang beat Symphony 2-0. So I watched almost all the games. I didn't see Sudden Fear versus Climax Crew, but I watched all the other games. And I think, what do you guys think? Like, what were your impressions of all the level of play for this weekend?
Well, with the exception of the Immunity games, obviously, the one that I was actually looking forward to the most was the Rich Gang versus Symphony game, because Rich Gang have just been completely dominating in the Open Challenger. What's the actual?
Yeah, it was the Open Ladder.
What is it? Oceanic Open Ladder. There we go. They just completely dominated in that entire series, so I was really looking forward to seeing them. And funnily enough, that's the only games that I haven't watched. I've seen the Sudden Fear and Climax, I've seen Fortnite and Endzone, I've seen Immunity versus Villains, obviously. I think Immunity, there was a bit of panic that I got from the public and a few of my friends, and like, oh no, like the Zed's going really strong in lane, but like our team composition was built around their strong Zed, so I wasn't particularly worried about it. It's like, oh, he's got, if he's got 4-0 now, it's getting a bit troubling. But no.
Steve mentioned to me after the game, because we spoke about the games a little bit last night, me and Steve, and he said that that particular Zed had about 600 ranked games on Zed, and then his next best was like Orianna on 200. Yeah. So a lot of research. There you go.
I do actually do things. I don't just say, hey, I do analysis for Immunity, and then just don't do anything. Like you have to research teams when you're on this kind of competitive level. Now, the Oceanic, the Open Ladder was a lot of solo queue champions. Like, I don't mean champions. I mean they're the top of their league. They've all got together as teams, and they've thought. And they go, okay, we're gonna make a serious go out of it. And I want to commend everybody who did that, because, there was a lot of very good mechanical plays throughout. Like, I wouldn't, not like Korean level sort of stuff, but It actually exceeded my expectation of what we were going to see come out of of that sort of tournament structure. Because I remember we've had similar style things where it's like, okay, we're going to have the universities and the internet cafes and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
kind of play, and then like they show up and they're just absolutely no match for going against. But all of the matches that were on the weekend were I don't want to say very close, but they were in terms of skill level, it was a much smaller differentiation between the skill levels compared to some of the previous tournaments. So that was very, very good to see. I was at Sudden Fear and Climax Crew and Four Not and End Zone. Like every single team fight after the 30-minute mark in like every single one of their games was like, this is the team fight. Whoever wins this team fight will win the game. And then every single team fight did not have a definitive winner. And a lot of the games just went on forever. Because everyone would be like, okay, just go full, commit to the fight. Which is what you're meant to do. But like, they'd have like 2 champions left on no HP so they couldn't push a tower. Versus one like character that can't do damage on full health or whatever. They're like, you know what? Let's back out. Let's just regroup. We'll win the next fight. And that just happened like 15 times in a row or something.
Yeah. Every time you start a fight and they get nothing out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like they had the right idea. You could see that they were trying to you could see what they were all trying to do. And I'm not sure whether that's the teams aren't they aren't synergistic enough to successfully team fight to beat them down, or whether or not the other teams were just so good at defending against that sort of tactic. So it's actually quite hard to tell, where the amazing skill lies and where the lack of communication on brand new teams is really coming into play. But no, I was very entertained.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we should point out that a lot of these teams, I mean, particularly a couple of them, so I know Villains and Symphony, both had names which are very familiar. So Villains had Dolphs and Bun Bun, who have both been around for a while. In a team previously known, goes Dolph, goes Bun Bun, which actually they did pretty well in that format. Symphony had, at least, I mean, there was First Mate, who was on NV, you had Airy and Mazui, and who was the other person? Perfection?
Check your Twitter history.
Yeah. We'll get to Rich Gang in a sec, because it's pretty funny. But, so a lot of experienced players. Like, it's not just, just people nobody have heard of. And obviously, I mean, these guys were at the top of the Challenger. I mean, they probably even had to reach Challenger to go into this open ladder thing. Oh, no, they didn't. No, so it was open ladder was a different thing. So, but, obviously quite skilled. They did, but you're right. They played very much like solo queue teams, which
I
kind of
yeah. Go ahead.
Which kind of disappointed. Like, I guess whenever these things happen, I kind of hope for the next Cloud9. Like you have a team, like, because with the in ALCS and the EULCS, when they have the relegations and stuff, there, usually the established teams beat the challenger teams, but then there's always like. There's a team that sort of rockets up, there's your LMQ, there's your Cloud9, there's teams that actually truly stand out even amongst the challenger teams. And I kind of didn't even see that, even to be fair, Immunity, I mean, Game 2, they won convincingly, I think, because Villains just completely lost their shit. I don't know what happened, but like, just from the outset, they were doing crazy dives and all sorts of like really... Like, they were on tilt from the outset.
I can't remember entirely what happened in the second game. I do remember, they were like, I know, let's lane swap this game for reasons I wasn't quite sure why. And Immunity's simple response was, oh, well, if 4 of you are going to be in top lane, then we'll just take a level 2, level 3 dragon. It's not a big problem to us. Immunity looked a little bit shaky to me in the first game, but... Really, they once they found their composure, Claire pulls this mad quadra kill, and he's doing these sweet wave clear plays in the mid lane that scares everyone off, and he's like, fucking balling.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was noticeable.
The Fizz pick is just perfect against the Zed. It doesn't matter how far ahead the Zed gets. If you're switched on when you're playing Fizz, you can just negate half of his kit with just well-timed troll polls and stuff. So I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Sudden Fear, who picked Shen in the top lane into Aurelia. And yeah, like don't get me wrong, that game went forever. Like that was one of those games where the game could have ended at this point, but didn't quite. I think some of the newer teams haven't really adapted to the strength of towers, especially Nexus turrets. Like everyone's really scared of the towers because they used to just completely drill you, but people are still, just by force of habit over the last few years of playing, not really pushing the boundaries as far as they can. And that I really did see that, especially in game 1, the game where they picked Shen. But I was just so happy to see him being picked on at this level of play, and it was a pick into Aurelia, so he's confident on it. They picked LeBlanc against it. Sorry, not LeBlanc, Morgana against it. So the black shield to prevent the taunts and everything like that. But no, I was just happy to see Shen again.
Now, I just want to go back to, I think Immunity, their experience showed when they were put under pressure, they could keep their heads cool, where I think Villains kind of lost the plot after a certain point in game 1, and then game 2, they were just kind of on tilt from the outset, and then just that move that Jack mentioned about going to Dragon, Villains moved in a 4v1 top push thing, so they had two men in the jungle, they did the lane swap, and then for some reason they didn't.
Really hard meta to do it into with, dragons are like the biggest objective at the moment. When you want to get to that 5 dragon as soon as possible, then you pretty much won the game, and you're just basically giving it away because you're like, well, do you know what to do? Maybe we can do some cool lane swap. I saw them do it in America once.
Like they were positioned to do it, but then they didn't actually do it. That was the weird thing. They were absolutely positioned to do it, and then they just, I don't know, they went off and did something else, which allowed Immunity to get essentially a free dragon. Like they didn't have to, they didn't lose anything by giving up that by going for that dragon. So I think that's an experience. I think a lot of that would have a lot to do with experience. But I don't want to be mean to you, Steve, to your face, but or to your team's face. I just don't. I don't think. Even with that, I don't think they were at a massive cut above the rest, which I was kind of wanting to see from them.
You just wanted to see a pub stomp, didn't you?
Well, no. I mean, I guess you think about Legacy and Chiefs, and I guess Avant for sure. I think Direwolves, I'm still not I don't think they've been around long enough for me to be 100% certain of where they're at. Whether they'll be sustained.
They've been practicing.
Oh yeah, and they've got the skill. That's a doubt. I don't want to sort of doubt their abilities, but I guess you sort of need to see them for a whole year to see if they're going to maintain their consistency. And consistency is the key thing, which I'd probably say more than anything when we talk about the professional scene. But I mean, I guess I was expecting Immunity to kind of be a bit more imagine if a Chiefs or a Legacy were in this comp, they would have probably thrashed the pants of any of these teams, which is, they are a cut above. And it's not just that they're more skilled, but just their entire way of playing is better. They are more like truly professional teams overseas. And I was hoping to see Immunity a bit more like that. And I don't think they were, which kind of... It might be that it wasn't a LAN event, because it was an online event, so presumably really spread out, and that takes away from their ability to communicate. But I still kind of... I was a little bit disappointed, but I am glad that they've made it. They got the wins. I would have, they got it 2-0. They did what they needed to do, and that's all that matters. So
that's it.
I don't want to be too hard on them, but I guess I had higher expectations for them compared to other teams. But just to go to Rich Gang in terms of expectations, because they, as you said before, Steve, they were 300 points clear of everybody else in the open ladder. Played really well. Also, by far, the funniest thing I've ever seen on Twitter, which I'll just bring up now. So, I tweeted about Symphony. I said, first mate, Mizui, Airy, and Perfection. They've all been in a team before. I'm trying to think who it is. And whoever runs the Rich Gang account, they have by far the funniest people in Oceania. They tweeted this just a picture of co-op versus AI. So, I want to give a big shout out to whoever did that, because that is brilliant. Anyway, just to go to their performance, I was pretty impressed. Like I kind of thought they were, they were very convincing in their win. Probably as convincing as Immunity was in their second game. So, I'll be interested to see how they go. They look like they might have what it takes compared to the other teams. I think maybe the other teams kind of, they might grow into it. And this is, I said on Twitter, like I was kind of, just sort of felt like they were all just good solo queue teams. They weren't anything better than that. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, they might grow into it. And that is absolutely true. So,
yeah, well, it takes a while to build the sort of trust and communication within a team in order to really take advantage of the map objectives and such. Like if you wind the clock back to about a year ago when we were talking about shot calling like every other day, it's like, if someone on your team makes a bad call or a good call, you follow that call, because a bad call is still better than a bad call being followed by 5 people is still better than a good call being only followed up by 3 or 4. So, like, when you've got teams that haven't been together for a while, there's always the kind of mentality that, do I do what he said then, Baron at this point is a dumb idea. We shouldn't do this. But
do they have a definitive shot caller as well as another thing? Like,
well, that is another question.
Like because they're a solo queue team. You think like I've played a bit of rank play. That we never had a real clear definitive shot caller. We all just say stuff and we just do stuff as per, and we argue half the time as well. So, is there any real structure in these teams?
That's it. Like, even Carrot and I have kind of a hierarchy whenever we play. Like I'll make most of the calls, but Carrot can overrule me, and then there's no arguing. Because you'll notice in the really well-structured esports teams, like the second they get a kill on the enemy AD carry, or they do a certain thing, instantly every single champion just like instantly the entire team turns and runs towards the exact same objective. There's no one person goes up to ward or one person start wolves. Like, you never see that in really well coordinated teams. Like, it's immediately, okay, let's get 2 towers and an inhibitor. You don't have time for half a second of should we really, like milliseconds count at this level of play. So and that really was a factor. Like, you could see a lot in especially Climax and Sudden Fear, like those games, there seemed to be a lot of hesitation in what the next call was going to be. So, and that's really what led those games to go out as long as they did, because it was never, and like they were never in a position to kind of take advantage of a fight they won, because almost nobody ever won a fight in those games. But yeah, that's the general idea, is that they haven't quite got the refinement where they can just instantly turn, objective, everyone fall back, everyone recall, everyone ward, it's kind of military style efficiency when you think about it.
Yeah, I guess one of the great things about the new format for the Pro League, so it'll be 8 teams, it's 7 weeks of play, so it's actually, rather than having kind of all this other stuff going on, you've got, the regular kind of the meat and potatoes of the pro scene is really, it's your CGPLs, it's your, ACLs, like they're the kind of more regular events, and then you have the qualifiers for this big event, it's the winters or autumn or whatever. I guess with the new format, you've actually got 7 consistent weeks of play, so they actually can build over that time to develop their skills. And I guess also it will help, sort out the wheat from the chaff. Like, I guess it's a bit different rather than... if you think about, Legacy have continued to perform since their win at Winter. But, they really... They kind of almost came out of nowhere to deliver in that final at Supernova in Perth. And that's what got them to Gamescom. And Avant's a bit the same. Like, Avant... totally terrible year for Avant, and then they just finally got the team together and just delivered on that weekend, in those games. So it's rather than you think about compared to the LCS, where the teams that, I mean, I guess they they still have playoffs, but, really the teams are playing every week, and you get an LMQ or, who wins 21 out of 28 games or whatever it was. You get a Cloud9 in their first split where they just completely dominate. So you kind of get a better sense of where people are at and which teams can actually deliver consistently and which teams are just kind of a flash in the pan. I think it's about...
Sorry, I was just going to say, what I like about that is when a team like Cloud9 or LMQ, as the examples you've gave, when they come out and they look just so dominant and like just so switched on, I like seeing why they're winning.
Yep.
And seeing who has what it takes to find the solution to beat that strategy.
Yep.
Or to beat that kind of play style. And that's the stuff that I love.
And it's adjusting over patches as well. Like you think about, a Curse or a Dignitas who had these like amazing, 6 to 8 weeks to begin with at the start of the split, and then they just kind of trailed off as things went on because they just kind of couldn't really keep it at that level, for whatever reason it was. And
if you consider like we've got this in Oceania, you've got this all over the world, but if you consider like if your top laner, his best character, whether it's in meta or not, is Jax, and your bottom laner best two characters like Corki and Ezreal, and all of a sudden a patch comes on and they nerf the hell out of Trinity Force.
Yep.
That's really a nerf to your team specifically.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you can always go and pick up Graves or, Ashe or, Callista or whoever has become the new meta as a direct result of the change. But if you've got, 700 ranked games on Ezreal and Corki, and all of a sudden you can't rely on your Trinity Force build anymore, that has individual and team-wide influences.
Absolutely. And I guess, it probably takes the edge. We think about Immunity, who played pretty well against Chiefs, but then got this, crushing loss. Like, they were just so close to winning, and then they got beaten. And then they had to immediately go play Direwolves. And some people say there's no excuses, but I think...
keep bringing this up?
No, I'm just saying, but just the 2 games, this is one particular match determined whether they qualified for the next round or not. Like, they got knocked out, and now they have to re-qualify all over again. Where if you got 7 weeks, losing one match won't be as big a difference. They'll be allowed to, they'll be able to bounce back, they'll be able to recover, they'll be able to sort of, learn from that particular thing, be it, just whatever failing it was. So, I think that for me is another exciting thing about the final format, the actual the pro league, and how it'll actually, allow better teams to succeed kind of for longer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think if there's anything any pro team should aim for, it's to not be like Millennium from EU LCS, because like they come out and they're like, yeah, we're stomping everyone, and their strategies aren't working anymore, and they don't know what to do now because their main strategy doesn't work anymore, and they're not learning from their mistakes. They're not thinking, hey, maybe we should do something not what we normally do that normally makes us lose. It's all, and this is the same for any individual player wanting to get better at the game. If you keep doing the same thing, and you lose all the time, you have to look at yourself and say, I wonder why I'm losing right now. Why does this person keep beating me at level 2 when I'm a hyper carry or something like that who has no level 2?
Well, just when we're talking about pro teams that you don't want to be like, I would say Vulcan. And I worked with the team. I worked for the team. I was a massive fan of XDG and MME Ferris and all that, everything that was part of their build-up. But once they actually qualified for LCS, picture of a goose, going all the way back. I was with them for I was a big fan of theirs for a long time. When they actually got into the LCS, and it got towards halfway through the end of the season, they stopped being a team that went, we want to go to Worlds. We've got to win. We've got to be the very best. And it went to, we have to win because of job security. And their priorities completely shifted, and the reasons why they played League. It was that, and the Trinity Force podcast talk about this all the time. It was they were playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Uh, that's very little to do with what we're talking about. But if we're talking about pro teams that you don't want to emulate, that kind of attitude is definitely not what we want.
I'd also say don't be like Sven Skaren from SK and be an incredible racist while overseas and get yourself banned. That'd be my suggestion. All right. Well, let's. We probably. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up before we move on? Just because we can move on to some other stuff. So, is there anything else we want to make mention of? There is another 2 weeks of this. So we've got games this weekend. Just wait for Victor to move his headphones. There we go.
What's up?
I don't know. I'm getting some feedback from. I can hear myself through your headphones or something. Anyway,
I'm super sorry.
It's fine. So we got games this weekend, Group B and A on for Saturday, Sunday. So presumably same sort of time, so 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And then there's actually the remaining games are the following weekend, the Australian Island weekend. So we've actually this Challenger series has still got a way to go. Which is awesome.
I just want to point out statistics for that because I've done a lot of number crunching for this, but Nah had 100% pick or ban phase over the weekend. Yeah, he was either picked or banned.
Blue Build Ezreal's back,
Oh yes, I'm disgusted by that.
and he built an Essence Reaver.
He did actually. Yeah, that was finally we've actually seen somebody find a purpose for Essence Reaver. I looked at that. Actually, that's not a terrible idea. So
I like it.
So we finally
I
actually got a
actually
purpose for Essence Reaver with Blue Build Ezreal, and a purpose for Runin's Hurricane with Callista. Sorry, Vic.
You know, I particularly because we saw 2 Blue Build Ezreals technically. I can't remember who's played. I think it was Villains played the first Blue Build Ezreal with the Essence Reaver, wasn't it?
No, it was Fortnite. It was CNJ.
Same guys. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. They built a Blue Build Essence Blue Build Ezreal with the Essence Reaver, and then another guys who played yesterday in the morning, they built one with a Bloodthirster, and I thought about it a bit, and I thought I kind of prefer the Essence Reaver from a theoretical standpoint. In theory, I prefer the Essence Reaver build to the Bloodthirster in there. One reason is because Bloodthirster isn't blue. The other reason is because
You mixed
Blue
with
Build
the theme.
no, but Blue Build Ezreal is a very it's the idea of it is he's really hard to catch. He's got a whole bunch of CDR. He's slowing you all the time, hitting you from a distance, and you just can't get to him, you know. And we saw a response from the team that just sent in Renekton to deal with Ezreal in the Dragon Pit, and Renekton just could not get on top of Ezreal at all. Because that's what Blue Build Ezreal does. He kites you forever. His arcane shifts on a really low cooldown, and then his Qs are on a low cooldown, which every time you hit one, you reduce the cooldown of arcane shifts. So you're jumping all the time, and you got Muramana going, and you can keep that permanently on because every Q applies on hit effects. So you can keep getting Essence Reavers back. So you can just keep going, and it's got CDR on it. Whereas the Bloodthirster gives you the shield. And I don't see the point on the shield when the whole purpose of playing Blue Build Ezreal is to not get caught. And Bloodthirst is more like a safety net. You got that shield, you get hit, it doesn't matter because you didn't take as much damage as probably should have.
Well, I think it does show a very clear difference in the approach that these Ezreals had. Just on that, I just want to say that was game 2 of Fortnite versus Endzone. The Renekton versus Ezreal bit, so if you want to go back and watch that, that's that game there. But if you look at one type of Ezreal and the other type of Ezreal, just that one item can tell you loads about how the players will play. Like, Blue Build Ezreal is, as you said, it's about not getting caught, but it's also about setting up initiation opportunities. Like, if you see a lot of the Korean games where they're running Blue Build Ezreal, they'll generally have like a Syndra or a Karthus or a champion that if they've got someone who's slowed, that they can really take advantage of them being now out of position. And so the shield allows you to make more aggressive plays more often. And if you get caught, then you can just blink back out, you know, and you can get your health back, and it mitigates it makes that risk assessment a lot better. Like, if you've got that shield and you've got a huge chunk of lifesteal, you can afford to get in, risk a little bit more to try and set up a play for your team, and if it goes bad, then you've got that nice little buffer zone. Whereas if you're going the blue, then it's all about just throw out the poke, keep them at arm's length, and hopefully we win the poke battle, or hopefully they step in the wrong direction and we can take care of them with Ezreal, and we can just 1v1 duel and they won't be able to get away. So it's an interesting play style difference. I'm not entirely sure which one is stronger than the other. I'm just Iceborne Gauntlet with Muramana on Ezreal is enough to make the build work. So if you're getting to that point of the game, generally Ezreal's power spike is getting down anyway, but there are different ways to play it.
Now all we need to do is find an actual use for Omewrecker, and the whole space-time continuum will collapse upon itself. All right, well, let's move on from the Challenger Series. Quickly make mention that the LPL, so the I've actually forgot what it stands for, but it's the Chinese Premier League. It's actually going to be broadcast from Sydney, so that's the connection to the Oceanic scene. Atlas will be, and presumably Pastry Time at some stage, and presumably Spawn will be helping with the shoutcasting of the LPL. So that's pretty exciting, and it means you get to hear those great Australian accents more often. So there's no schedule on that yet. So just to keep lolesports.com will probably have it. Let's go on to talk about some of the stuff on the PBE, because you're particularly excited about this, Steve. So we got visual reworks.
Yeah, well, it wasn't necessary, because we see visual reworks kind of being thrown in on the PBE every now and then, but there's a ton of them on there at the moment, and they all look really impressive. Like some of the previous visual reworks, I'm like, oh yeah, that looks cool. But Morgana, Volibear, and Alistair all look really, really good right now. And they've got they're updating a whole bunch of the portraits that have been recently changed, and making it a little bit more crisper and well defined, so that you can more easily see who they've actually picked. Like, it makes them more recognizable. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say. That like Alistair, like the detail that is on the skins, and on all the different varieties of Alistair that there are, that looks really, really good. Looks really, really good. It looks a lot more modern. Infernal Alistair, and was it Striker? Sweeper Alistair. They look freaking cool.
I prefer the current Infernal Alistair, to be perfectly honest.
Really?
As a skin I run. Yeah, I don't know.
There's not a whole lot of difference. There's a lot of difference between most of his skins, but I think Infernal Alistair's hardly any difference between them.
The Morgana. Yeah, I thought there was a big difference there. Anyway, maybe that's just me. But I've been hoping for a Morgana visual rework for a while, and this isn't a complete rework. It's a texture rebalance. So, and I think that Morgana, she's looked all right, but the way that she walks has always just kind of irked me. Like the way that her skirt or robe or whatever that she's wearing, depending on the skin, always kind of looks like she just has like really big hips. Yeah, like Victor's doing it on stream for all those people listening. But yeah, no. So I really hope that this texture update really does fix that. And she just looks, she's got more detail to her, so I like that. And Volibear doesn't look all that much different, but his claws look so much more badass. Like, it doesn't look like he's going to run up and hug you now. He looks like he's going to walk up and tear you apart.
A fool in his hand are easily parted.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up because, like, there's a lot of them on there. They've got, like, summoner icons and what are they called? The portraits, and there's a whole bunch of skins up there. It's like, I just wanted to point out just how many that there were, and how it means a lot of good things for the early start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the Morgana and Volibear ones are just texture updates. So with Alistair's actually a model update, a bit like Maokai. So it's not... I'm disappointed that they didn't take the opportunity to update his voiceovers and his... Because he's only got, like, basically about 5 things he says, and he says them endlessly.
They can't change those, Carrot.
You could at least add some more things.
They're so defining.
It's
You
at least,
can't-
Being able to spam, you can't milk those is just
Yeah.
a defining feature. You can't take that away from him.
It would
It'd
be
be like
nice-
taking
Change or
rocket in your
milk those.
It'd be like taking rocket in your pocket away from Tristana. She doesn't want you to lose that rocket in your pocket.
I just wish he said more than like 3 things. It'd be nice. Anyway, yes. But the texture update with Morgana, I'm pretty pumped by because she actually looks like shite now, and she'll look much better then.
Yeah,
So-
Maybe one day they'll fix the
they
bitch.
Yeah, even if they
There we
just fix the skirt, I think that would be enough to make.
It won't fix the skirt. It's just a texture update.
Her
She'll
colours
still-
aren't infuriating.
She'll still
now,
work
that's nice.
exactly the same. She doesn't change anything. It's
Yeah,
just-
but if they're changing the textures, only the textures, then they can still make how the textures lay look less kind of in your face. Because at the
Maybe.
moment it looks like a gigantic upside down bowl with like art drawn on it that just keeps getting shifted backwards and forwards. So they've got the opportunity to kind of repaint it and I don't know, lessen that just a little bit. So I'm excited for that anyway.
All right. Well, let's move into unless there's something else you wanted to add, Jack. Oh, okay.
Nothing off the top of my head, it's fine.
Let's talk about the state of the meta. So we're probably like a week away. I reckon it's gonna be sometime sort of early next week, maybe even this week. We'll have patch 5.1. It's pretty close, which because the LCS is about 2 weeks away. Starts the day before Australia Day. So we thought we'd just sort of go into a bit about what's being picked, what's not being picked, how things are shaping up going into Season 5. Obviously, things will change as the season goes on, but let's do a state of the meta. So,
I know what I'm going to be picking for the next season, every game, forever.
Taric,
Taric.
once he gets his rework, man, you'll be...
I'm going to be so...
you would have a little rant about that before we get into...
I heard... First, I got a soft spot for Taric.
He's so
problem
upset he
with
can't
me
even
is
get
I
words
don't-
out.
It's at the point now where I don't like saying that I like Taric quite a lot and I main Taric, because whenever I say that I main Taric, any opinion I have anything at all about meta and whatever and champs and anything, any opinion I have about anything is just completely disregarded because I play Taric. I'm not worth listening to anymore. So I don't like... So it's hard for me to say I like Taric. Fuck you, I like Taric. I really like Taric.
I like Taric too. I'm with you, bro.
I like how he is right now. The current Taric is my favorite Taric. And if they gave him back his old ultimate where he mass healed everyone, I'd like him even more. But I still kind of like him right now. And I soloed Baron with him the other night too. I did it.
Nice. Did it take
There's
35
a
minutes?
lot of wave manipulation to stop the game from ending.
Basically, I fought the Baron long enough to be able to ult 4 times, I think. I managed to get Radiance off about 4 times. Now, to everyone that might sound completely outlandish, but it's a 45-second cooldown. Every spell cast, the next auto attack reduces all your cooldowns by 2 seconds. And I got 40% CDR. And his cooldowns are well spaced enough that you've always got a spell off cooldown if you manage it right enough, and you can get a whole bunch of ults off. And
It sounds like a World of Warcraft player would be a good Taric player in this particular scenario. Like
If they
they've
want
got
to solo
their
Baron.
skill- They've got their... Yeah, that's for this exact scenario. Like, they've got their skill rotation and timing down to a fine art. They know, I press this button, then 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 alt.
yeah,
You know?
so yeah. Given how I feel about Taric, you can imagine that I get into a lot of arguments about Taric's viability.
Yeah.
And
Alright.
'cause everyone tells me he's useless, but it has been confirmed that they are working on the update, and it's apparently going well. And the first thing I did was tweet back "no" like Darth Vader. I was so I was so upset, but I did hear something. I did hear something a little bit later that they were playing around with a charm mechanic in his kit. So it sort of does make me feel a
that'd be
little bit
great.
more optimistic. It does make me feel a little bit more optimistic about where they're going with it, because it does feel like they're going for, it does feel like they're sort of defining his theme, and I'm fine with that if it happens.
That's hilarious.
Just don't make
No,
him shit.
I
Well-
want to clarify something, because the word viability kind of gets thrown around. So I just want to, and I think it's particularly pertinent to the discussion we're about to have. Like, viable or viability isn't necessarily about which champions are the strongest or which champions are the most picked or who benefit like those are all factors into viability. When I'm talking about professional level viability compared to solo queue viability, like I almost never talk about solo queue viability
Yeah.
because we've done the battle arena and seen an AD crit based Rammus
Yeah.
carry games
He
on
made
a
a
fairly
return.
consistent
Carry
yeah,
hard as well. We should
really
mention.
hard. Like
Yeah.
No, he
no one
lost. He
could
lost
stop.
last week. He lost
Yeah, but
last
I'm
week.
talking about the first time we saw it, and I just had nothing to say. I'm like, well, this is weird. Like, so solo queue viability is just it's weird. Like,
Yeah.
if you get fed or you hit the right power spike and you know what you're doing on a particular champion in a particular situation, and your opponent doesn't know how to deal with it, then you're going to be able to carry a game. But that's not viability. That's something different. That's League of Legends. That's how the game can work, and that's how it's kind of designed to work, and that's how it's kind of operated since its inception, or even back to the original days of Dota and all the other World of War. Was it Warcraft 3 custom maps? They all had a similar theory when they were working around the MOBA style before that was even a word. Now, when I'm talking about competitive viability, it's the champions need to be strong enough that they don't die in lane. They need to be able to have some sort of synergy with another champion that also adds to the team composition. Like if you're like Taric may be considered viable in a particular team composition, but while the coaches in Korea are ignoring him, while no one's picking him up in the pro games, he's not what we would consider viable in that sense. He's
Well, you know what? He's what I consider a hidden gem.
a hidden gem. Brilliant. Well, that's actually one of the questions we've got. Sleeper picks, and that would probably more fit into the Tarics rather than viability. I think just on a language, just clarity of what we're talking about. Like if all of a sudden people start. A perfect example is Alistair. When Alistair was picking up Trinity Force and Static Shiv in the top lane and just doing absolutely crazy work, he was definitely a sleeper champion. And because he was so reliable with that particular build before they changed the auto attack on Q, the way that he worked, he became viable after being a sleeper pick. So it's very well that someone like Taric could become viable. But
So here's what you don't understand, Steve. Here's what you don't understand. My Taric was beating that Alistair.
Yeah. Again, that's not what viability means. Anyway, we should probably move on.
Yeah,
to
we should actually move on.
I
Actually, talk about this.
I get what you mean about viability,
Yeah.
and when I say viability, it's just because I can't articulate myself and find right words, and I just sort of throw out viability because everyone's throwing it. It's just like the argument I have about counter picks. I don't believe there's really a such thing as a counter pick, but we all say counter picks because counter. When I think of a counter, to me it's this champion cannot play in any way, shape, or form into this champion, no matter what this champion does. That's what a counter means to me. But the fact is there are ways this champion can play into this champion, and in that way this champion can be considered a counter to this champion. It's
like if you think about like three great examples are Fizz, Zed, and Twisted Fate. And all of those can be in some way a counter to the other. Like if you're completely knowledgeable and equally skilled on all champions, the ones that are considered like the official counters to them will prevail. But if you're not,
see, I don't even consider that a counter. I call that favorable and unfavorable matchups. That's how I define them.
Yeah, but and I agree with your terminology, but that's not language that is being used within the rest of the League of Legends community.
Yeah,
like
well,
when you're a professional commentator, say something.
Let's actually get into the meta of season 5 because we've kind of got sidetracked. We've only got 15 minutes left, so let's talk about season 5, where we're at right now, where it might go. So, who are we seeing picked now So obviously we got some new champions in the mix. So now
No.
he wasn't really. Was he actually available at Worlds? I don't think he was.
No,
I
it wasn't.
I don't think they let him in.
He
So
was released beforehand, but disabled for the
yeah,
actual.
for the thing. So we got
Yeah.
Nah, obviously is a new one in the mix. Rek'Sai's obviously a new one in the mix. Kallista's obviously in the mix. Azir is in the mix as well. So 4 champions that weren't at Worlds. But there's also more champions now. So let's talk about who are we seeing that's been picked now.
Well, Callista's been ignored.
Apart from those new
completely.
champs. Well, yet.
Apart from those new champions?
We'll get into that. But so apart from the new champions, who are we seeing picked now that we weren't seeing picked sort of Worlds last year?
LeBlanc's
Worlds
back.
last year. That's a huge. No, because like so many changes have happened. Like if you said 6 months ago, the answer would be completely different. Because last year at Worlds, Corki, Graves, and Ezreal. Hang on, am I getting my Worlds right? I'm trying to remember.
That's season 2.
Season 2. See, yeah, well, that's it. Corki, Graves, and Ezreal, huge, and then the nerf to Trinity Force, and then they weren't seen. So,
there wasn't Trinity Force.
Ezreal became a different, like with the release of Iceborne Gauntlet, became a different champion to what he was at season 2. Whereas you wouldn't see the other two. Oh, I think there was maybe 1 or 2 Corki games played last year at Worlds. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look at my notes from ages ago.
Well, let's just restrict our comparison to Worlds Season 4 versus, the start of Season 5. Rather than let's do a historical.
Let's start from the top lane and work our way down.
Yeah, let's start at the top lane. So,
Jax. Jax has fallen out of favor.
Yep.
Yep. He could be coming back, but at this point in time, he's not being picked. Renekton, up until like a couple of weeks ago, hadn't been seen in quite some time. He'd fallen out of favor as well. Lulu is another person who was very, very powerful for a very long time, all over Worlds. Vanished pretty much overnight when they got rid of the movement speed AP scaling. Which was like one of the main reasons that Zillion is someone who has shown up, made a massive impact, made everybody rethink everything that they knew about League of Legends, and then started off again.
Well,
he just stopped being picked completely again.
Pretty much he got dropped as soon as they changed the global passive, got rid of his global passive. I mean, it's really... Well, you might still see him as a support, but it's pretty unlikely.
Also, the AD carry picks affected that as well.
Yeah.
Now we've moved more towards Ezreal, and I guess Corki sort of got a bit of play, and Graves is a little bit in there. There's not so much like Tristana and Cogmore, these big late game hyper carries, especially Cogmore, someone who's got no escapes, and hey, we just bring him back to life, and he does it again, and then the Cathian surprises. So there isn't a lot of reason to put Zillion back into the mix now.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the top lane, we've got Maokai still being picked. Obviously, Na's now in the mix in a big way. He's got some nerfs on the PPE, but from what I've seen, I don't think it's going to change. I think he'll still be, very highly sought after in the top lane. Who else we see top? You saw Kassadin on the weekend.
We're seeing
Kassadin
Dr. Mundo, Kassadin, Lissandra, Maokai. Renekton has made a comeback. Aurelia is actually quite more she's more prominent than I think she's been in a very long time.
Yeah, and we saw a Shen game.
Well, we saw a Shen game this week.
Game.
Yeah, and I think there was a Shen played like at the end, like after Worlds, but in some pro
it's
games.
It's hard to say if he's back in. It might just be the strategy they sort of went for and said, well, Shen fits.
Yeah, well, I think Shen is very much one of those champions that sort of like Tryndamere, where he can show up, and it's something you kind of have to, a pocket pick. It's something you have to keep in the back of your mind. They could pick Shen, they could pick Mundo, they could pick Tryndamere when you're designing your team comp. So if they haven't locked in their top laner, that's something that you need to consider.
In terms of jungle, I mean, Kha'Zix is pretty much, as far as I'm aware, completely disappeared. Elise is still
the thing is, I actually think Kha'Zix should still be up there because I've been doing a lot of Talon jungle recently, and the reason I found Talon jungle incredibly strong is because I think Warrior is very good, and my clear path in the jungle has kept me very healthy. And I tried a similar strategy on my when I picked up Kha'Zix, and I cleared very efficiently. I was not suffering from hard jungle clearing, whatever. I worked out a clear path, did it right, and Stalkers is good on him. I picked up a double brutalizer build, which is surprisingly good at the moment because Warrior drops the unique passive from brutalizer, and then I can pick up some other brutalizer item. And I think Kha'Zix should. My theory is Kha'Zix should still be up there. But if he doesn't come, he doesn't come, and right now he's not there.
Well, it's like if you can figure out one build, or not build, if you can fit one path in the jungle where Kha'Zix is able to be strong, and that's that's the only way to go. If that knowledge becomes freely available, and it does in professional play, because you can go back and watch the VODs whenever you want. People have got coaches and analysts and people that look into this stuff regularly. If you can figure out that Kha'Zix has to do the same thing every single time, it is really easy to shut that Kha'Zix down. Because all you need to do is go to the red buff at 2 minutes and 13 seconds and kill him, you know.
The other argument there is, in the previous season, junglers always started at the bottom side of the jungle because they got they got two people leashing for them. So you always knew they were in the bottom side of the jungle at the start of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you always knew at a certain time they would have left. There's a window where they won't be in there. They'll be in the other side, clearing their other side. And I'm sure there are definitely a couple of ways you can clear with Kha'Zix, like that early back to get you to complete your jungle item.
Yeah.
Like you can still do that, or you can do the full clear path. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, Elise has dropped off a ton, but is still being picked, and I think that is because she has a little bit of variety in what she can do, whereas Kha'Zix is a little bit more dangerous at the moment. Like, we saw some jungle Wukong on the weekend, which just confounded me because Wukong's even weaker now than he was last season. And
I don't even think the Wukong had a really effective pull on that game at all. Like really I reckon his Lee Sin pick. This was 4-9 by the way. I reckon his Lee Sin play was tremendously better than his Wukong play. I don't know why they changed it up. I mean, I could sort of get it with the Orianna pickup, but even then, it's more of a Yasuo pick at that point.
Yeah, well, Yasuo is someone who's dropped off. Like he copped one too many nerfs, and he just vanished. And like the team compositions could still fit him. Like people are still playing Lee Sin, Maokai, Tristana. Braum has dropped out of favor a little bit, and I think that is because of the Yasuo nerf rather than anything to do with Braum specifically. Braum still does everything.
I feel like Yasuo is one of those scare nerfs though. Like LeBlanc was a big scare nerf. Like she dropped out because of the silence removal, and it took this tiny little tweak that doesn't really change her gameplay that much at all. Makes her just a tiny bit slipperier because they changed the way her passive works a little bit, and then she was back straight away. Like Yasuo lost a bit of movement speed, and hey, we're done with Yasuo now. Like it was that's a scare nerf.
Well, Yasuo is incredibly reliant on movement speed. And I think they also nerfed Shiv at the same time. I might be remembering that wrong.
I don't recall Shiv nerfs.
Yeah. But yeah, like all of these changes have kind of just forced Yasuo out. So now we're seeing a ton of Syndra, which is like they didn't.
Well,
really
we were saying heaps of it before. I mean, over
the last 9 months, yeah, but before then, Syndra's been out longer than she's been viable. And they didn't really change anything about her. It was just people realized that she would be strong against what people were playing at the time, and she stuck around. And like her long range stun and just her insane burst, it's shut down the movement speed meta that we were seeing with Zillion. Janna is a perfect example of someone who came from out of nowhere as well. And she was definitely a sleeper pick of a support. Like, no one expected to see a Janna, and all of a sudden, bam, hey, look, Janna. what's going on? Oh my goodness. Absolutely every single team fight just was a complete stomp because of this Janna pick. And then people are like, oh, well, you can just pick her against her. No, no, no. No, she's here to stay.
Yeah, well, I guess that goes right as well move to the bottom lane. So, so Janna's still around, as we just talked about.
Nami saw a little bit of play.
Nami's still around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know she dropped off at Worlds because Janna came back and everyone was like, "Fuck Nami, Janna's better," and everyone started playing Janna instead, and Nami was forgotten about. Now Nami's sort of coming back a bit now that everyone's gone back to their own regions.
Yep.
I feel like champs like Janna and Rumble who come big at Worlds particularly is I feel like they only really come big is because not everyone's super familiar with each other's playstyles because they all come from different regions. And so these are Rumble and Janna are really safe picks because they're really strong like team fight oriented champions. Like Rumble will just drop this massive equalizer on all of you and Janna will choose whether or not she wants that fight to happen. Just press the R button, fight ends. So I feel like they're just safe picks, particularly for, well, we don't know what they're going to do. Let's prepare for strong team fights.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Thresh is still around as well just because
he'll never be gone.
He's like the least...
a staple pick.
Yeah,
he's a staple pick at this point.
He's the least in of support. Like, essentially, there's nothing he doesn't do. He does everything you want. And a little bit more. So, I mean, in some ways, maybe support's probably the most stable out of the... maybe support's probably the most stable out of these because I mean, mid's seen a little bit of change, I guess, as well. But, I mean, support's basically more or less the same. I mean...
Very much so. They haven't changed really much, except for maybe, like Steve said, Braum dropped off a little bit. I didn't even notice that. I was like, fuck, Braum's gone? Oh, man.
Man, he's coming back with the El Tigre skin because he drops from the top row onto a poro on a chair. That's amazing.
It's the best recall animation I've ever seen.
Let's talk about Marksman. So Marksman have changed a little bit. Graves has become a big thing, which is kind of interesting to me because for a while he was like seen as the Olaf of the Marksman, like he was the weaker than by far, because he didn't even sort of have a niche like Ash.
Time in the sun.
Yeah,
disrespecting Olaf.
I'm just saying there's a reason why they call something Olafing him because after So I mean, Graves
I have a theory. I have a theory about Graves, and the reason that he got buffed when he did, and I swear. Like, this is a conspiracy theory here. I swear it was that the video that they released, where they've got the 5v5, Rengar versus Katarina, and like Graves came out of nowhere and he's like, and blowing stuff up.
I've got a cigar. And then I did have a cigar.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like, yep, Graves buffs incoming, and then they just buff the hell out of his
Graves to be the best champ.
No, they just they wanted people to go, oh yeah, that's Graves in the game. I remember him from the video. But
I think it's cool. I just want to see how this changes or if he stays, because I'm not too sure about him because I don't think that much has really happened to really impact his sort of early game dominance.
No.
Well, it might just because Lucian's gone weaker. Like that might just be it.
Well, it is in part due to that Lucian did cop a few nerfs to the face, but also Graves's ult change made him a much more reliable burst character much earlier in the game. And when you've got characters like Lissandra, when you've got characters like Zed, characters like Syndra being picked up for their burst potential to shut down these highly mobile champions, Graves is just perfect for that. It's just like, you know what, we've got a bursty mid, we've got a bursty top, let's get a bursty AD. And Infinity Edge and good teammates is enough for a positional advantage, so you can still get your auto attacks off with your Infinity Edge, that the rest of your kit is less important. Whereas if you look back Season 2, if your AD carry didn't have a teleport or a dash or something, you would not be picked at all because you needed that mobility to get your sustained damage through. But the game has changed so much that that's just so Graves is now a viable pick.
Yeah, I mean, and if you want to see some disgusting Graves play, go watch what Deft has been doing in solo queue. Deft being the Korean import for Curse. It is gross. It is seriously gross. Oh, they're not Curse anymore. There's something else.
Was he Samsung
They're
Blues player?
they're Team Liquid. What?
Was Def Samsung Blues player? The one that cried on stage?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because
No
it's Imp
disrespect
who's
to Def.
Imp.
Imp was white. I don't like Imp.
Yeah. Which I'm trying to think of the one that went to Curse.
Imp goes
Anyway.
too crazy and his team bails him out and everyone thinks Imp's the greatest. And I'm like, no. Imp's team is great. Imp is crazy.
Yeah.
Just
Anyway.
on that sustained damaged AD carry thing, like you see a lot less Caitlyn now. Like a lot less Caitlyn. And she was the auto attack, you know, like she was dominant in lane. She was always reliable. She could sneak dragons over the wall. You know, you don't see her anymore. And if you do,
Yeah,
it's
she was
because of
a
particular-
surprising drop off for me. She was a really surprising drop off for me because Caitlyn I very much saw as this really just staple kind of AD carry that everyone could just pick up. Like
She's got everything.
she fits she'll fit into just about any comp. Like it doesn't matter who you pick her with. She'll make it work for her.
I mean, what we saw on the weekend with the Challenger Series was a fair bit of Sivir as well. And I think Mystical shared some stats in Korean. Oh no, that's right. There was with Korean solo queue. Apparently, Sivir's been winning a lot. So, I mean, it could be just one of those things that others have been nerfed that has allowed her to come back to the forefront. But yeah, it's interesting that we're seeing a bit of Sivir. I mean, I think she's great. I think she's a great champion, and the utility she brings is amazing.
60% pick or ban rate from the weekend.
Yeah. So, you know. That's again interesting. Corky, I guess, is seeing a little bit less of, which means like always, I get on the hype
That's just
bandwagon
That's just response to his nerfs. Might be another scare nerf.
Yeah.
Like he might still have his place, but I don't know. They were
I
big
think he
nerfs.
does.
Weren't they? Like the Valkyrie. Like the Valkyrie was a big nerf, wasn't it? Like upping the mana cost there. I can't remember what else happened. Maybe the missile speed. That's what they changed.
They changed the missile speed on his Q, which reduced his ability to duel effectively. It still allows him to wave clear, which is what he's most important for at the moment. But then again, Severe is also very good at that as well.
But it's okay, guys. It's okay. We're still 10 months out.
As reliable an escape.
We're still 10 months out from Worlds, which means there's still plenty of time for Corky to get buffed just in time.
That's right. They'll buff Corky and Jackson. We'll be fine. Yeah.
Let's quickly talk junglers. We're over an hour, but let's quickly talk junglers. So we've still seen. We kind of covered that, didn't we already? We talked about Kazakhs.
We talked.
We haven't said
about
who's come
Kha'Zix
back.
and then we.
Yeah. So
Jarvan doesn't look like he's going anywhere.
J4 has become a bit of a thing, which is good.
Jarvan's huge now. Like Lee Sin is like brilliant and always will be. Like they've tried nerfing him, they've tried changing him. He's just too useful in too many different ways. But Jarvan is really showing up in the professional scene at the moment. And previously, like you'd need to kind of run an Orianna with him to really take advantage of him. Like that's what the team comps were around. Like it's like we've got Jarvan, we're going for team fights now. But the attack speed boost from his standard makes every single team a fast push team. Oh, that's probably not the right term, but they're able to just disintegrate towers instantly just because they've just nerfed the hell out of towers. And then just that standard is enough. That's enough. Yeah.
He's a champion Ryder going to look at eventually because there's a lot of hidden power in his kit that a lot of people aren't quite aware of. Like that attack speed, definitely. Some people don't know. Some people don't even know he gets a bit of armor from his E as well, and his Q reduces mass amounts of armor. Like there's a lot of hidden power in that kit, and I think Riot are going to address him eventually and see, what can we fix up a bit here.
Now, you've got a little section in here for sleeper picks, Karen. Are we ready to move on to that?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, so
I've got two in mind.
I've got one, two actually. I've got two.
Go for it.
My first one.
I'm guessing it's not Taric. Oh.
And it's always gonna be Taric because I think Taric is the best he's ever been. And my other one, more seriously, is Casanasa Passawasa Jasa the Gorgon.
It's a Medusa, and it's Cassiopeia.
The snake lady.
Gorgon's a ball.
What?
Anyway, So Cassiopeia, apparently, again, Mystical Shared said that apparently she's been getting some pretty crazy play in Korean Select. Anyway, keep going.
My sleeper picks, I'm really expecting a lot out of Kennen. With his recent buffs, we haven't seen him being picked up just yet on the professional scene, but I really do think that they changed exactly what they needed to just push him back onto the competitive scene. And another one that I think is actually got a lot of potential, but we'll kind of wait and see, I think is Skarner. I think
I said that in my predictions to you. You copied me.
What did I? What?
Because I did a predictions thing. I was like, Steve, these are all the champions in every role. I think are going to be good. And I mentioned
Skarner like
as one
15 things on there.
I mentioned Skarner as like when the second the preseason patches came through. I said, Steve, I think Skarner is going to be good.
Yeah, and he definitely could be. He definitely could be. I think he has a lot of potential. I think it'll really come down to whether or not, like, if mobility is going the way that it is, and people are taking more like Xerath, Syndra style, less mobile champions. That most of the team fight damage is the source of this incredibly immobile champion. Then I think he'll be much more potent pick than he has been previously. And he's always kind of just been under, like, just out of reach of the competitive level.
And then when Skarner comes, because all these less mobile champs comes, Taric will be better as well.
Go back to Season 2, baby. Skarner's heyday. I actually think Callista has potential.
Yeah.
I just think it comes down to they might need to change the numbers to make it work. From what I understand, she really does kick ass with Rune and Hurricane, which I can't believe I've said that about any champion, but apparently she does. But from what I understand, her early game is still super weak. But yeah, so that's from what I understand, according to Reddit. So I think if they were to change, work with that, they might be able to bring. Because I think she'd be a very exciting marksman to watch.
I'm really scared of Callista buffs. I am terrified of Callista buffs. That champion, when I saw her, terrified me. I thought this champion was going to be the biggest cancer to ever come onto the Rift and just ruin my day forever. I am petrified of seeing this champion in my games. I do not want to see her. I'm so scared.
I think also Azir has probably got a lot of potential as well, just in terms of his
I don't think he's really
tower
a sleeper
destruction.
at this point. Like, he's
I
quite
think
powerful.
everyone is well aware what
Is
he
he?
can do.
Okay.
No one's doing it, and he's too bugged.
No, he's being picked up in some Korean games because he works very, very well in certain matchups and in certain team compositions. But he's not an always pick. He's not like a first pick LeBlanc, first pick Janna. Like, he's not one of those characters. But, second or third rotation through Champ Select, you could definitely pick him up and go, gonna rock your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, like Azir, like my big beef with Azir is still sometimes when I wall someone, they end up on the wrong side of the wall, and it's really, that's the reason I stopped playing him, was because they were always ending up on the wrong side of the wall, and that just completely ruins you when your whole wall is supposed to put someone on the other side of you so you can just freely soldier him to death. And they just kept ending up on the wrong side because he's so bugged. It's still happening now.
Well, all in all, we're just another brick in the wall, so anyway. Let's move on. Let's do some shout-outs before we finish up. On that note, anybody understand any Pink Floyd? Anybody? All right.
Carrot, thank you.
I'm so old, and you're also young. Shout-outs. I want to give a shout-out. Ranconius. He's not here. His internet is still not working, and so I want to give a shout-out to him. I look forward to him returning as soon as his internet is existent.
I'll keep the seat for you.
We do miss you, Rank.
Yeah.
Come back to us.
Any other shout-outs you guys have? Oh, and I think I'm already mentioned my shout-out to Rich Gang, whoever runs Rich Gang's Twitter account, and also to Rich Homie, because it's the best summoner name currently out of the top-tier players.
Steve? You want to go?
No, I have no shout-outs this week.
You are a criminal. I'd like to shout out to Modbro and Tribal Mind. The Shaco Champion Rundown just came out on iTunes. Gukko Picks Productions, you can find that there. They run over Shaco and tell you how to play Shaco. So good work to those guys. They're still working while I'm sitting here exiled from the internet, just about. Not like Ranconius level exiled, but like can't do anything but still have it there exiled.
Yeah. All right. Well, that has been episode 70 of the OzLoL podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. Don't forget Battle Arena this Thursday.
This week.
This
Yep.
week. From 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And don't forget the Challenger Series continues this Saturday. Make sure you watch it. It's going to be very exciting games. And we'll be back again next week.
Good evening, ladies.